drums of the ancestors, deep in the heart of the Ashanti forests. Where the ancient trees whispered secrets only the wind understood, there lay the village of Nsumia. For generations, the people of Nsumia thrived under the protection of their ancestors, who spoke through the sacred drums. The village drum, carved from the trunk of the oldest Iroko tree, was said to hold the spirits of fallen warriors, wise elders, and even forgotten gods. But for over 50 years, the drum had remained silent. No one dared to play it after the last drummer, Nana Kwame, vanished without a trace on the night of a great storm. Since then, the elders forbade anyone from touching it, warning that disturbing the spirits within could bring misfortune upon the village. Yet, as the moon waxed full one fateful evening, a desperate boy named Kojo found himself drawn to the forbidden drum. The forbidden beat. Kojo had always felt different from the other boys in the village. While they hunted, fished, and learned to wield machetes, he found himself drawn to rhythms. The pounding of pestles in the mortar, the echo of raindrops on rooftops, and the gentle tapping of palm fronds against the wind. His grandfather, the revered elder Bafur, often caught him drumming on logs, bowls, even the ground. "Music is in your blood, Kojo," Bafur had once said, "but some rhythms must never be played." That night, Kojo sat alone in the village square, staring at the drum. The elders had locked it away in the shrine, but during the Harmattan winds, the door had loosened, allowing him a glimpse of its faded carvings, spiral patterns that seemed to move when the firelight flickered. A voice echoed in his head. Play. His heart pounded. He knew the stories. He knew the warnings. But something inside him yearned to strike the drum just once. His hands trembled as he reached out. The leather surface was cool, almost breathing. Before he could stop himself, he brought his palms down. Boom! The air thickened. The fire in the square flickered wildly, casting long, twisting shadows. Kojo's breath caught in his throat as the trees rustled with an unnatural wind. Then he heard it. Drums. Not just from the instrument before him, but from all around, deep. Thunderous beats rising from the earth itself. It was as if the ancestors had awakened. The vanishing. The villagers burst from their huts, shouting in fear. Elders clutched their chests, their eyes wide in terror. Kojo turned to run, but his legs wouldn't move. His body was paralyzed. Then the world went dark. When Kojo opened his eyes, he was no longer in Nsumia. He stood in an open plain under a blood-red sky. Around him, figures draped in shadow moved in circles, beating massive drums made of bones and stretched skin. Their eyes glowed like dying embers. "Who dares awaken us?" A deep voice boomed. Kojo turned to see a towering figure with a lion's head and a human body, clad in war paint. It was Okomfo Anokye, the great ancestor of all drummers. I didn't mean to," Kojo stammered. "You have played the sacred drum, breaking the silence we imposed," Okomfo Anokye growled. "And now you must pay the price." Kojo's heartbeat raced. He wanted to run, but the shadows were closing in. The drumming grew louder, their rhythms warping his thoughts. "You have one chance," the ancestor said, stepping closer. "Play the rhythm of your soul. If your spirit is pure, you may return. If not, you will remain here. Forever." Kojo swallowed hard. He had played rhythms all his life, but never for his survival. His hands hovered over the spectral drum before him. He closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and struck. The rhythm of the lost. At first his hands trembled, his strikes uneven. But then he let go. He played the sound of the wind through the trees, the sorrow of a boy who had never belonged, the longing of an orphan searching for answers. He played his story. The ancestors watched in silence. The lion-headed spirit nodded slowly. Then a powerful voice rang out. Enough. Kojo's hands stopped midair. The drumming ceased. The world around him began to fade. "You have proven your soul is true," Okomfo Anokye declared. "But beware. Once the drum is awakened, it cannot be silenced again. The ancestors will always listen." The ground beneath Kojo gave way, and he fell into darkness. The curse of the drum. Kojo gasped as he woke up in the village square. The elders surrounded him, fear and awe in their eyes. The sacred drum lay before him, its surface glowing faintly. "The drum speaks once more," Elder Bafur whispered. "And now, Kojo, it has chosen you." From that night on, the spirits would call to him, their voices echoing through the beats of the drum. Whenever danger threatened Nsumia, he would play, and the ancestors would answer. But deep in the forest, the wind whispered a warning. The drum had been silent for 50 years for a reason, and soon Kojo would discover why. The end, or just the beginning.